Hello YouTube, Captain Mac here, and welcome back to the life of a virtual airline pilot. Now you may recall in our last flight we flew into Tulsa, Oklahoma, KTUL, and today we're going to fly out of Tulsa up to KGBD, or Great Bend Airport, which I think is in Kansas. Didn't actually look very closely, to be honest with you. This is continuing our Boeing 737 USA tour from Mac Air. And I just want to say really quick, if you weren't aware, Mac Air has 144 of these tours over there. That's right, 144 of them. So, listen, for those of you who've been in flight simulation for a long time, especially those of you familiar with virtual airlines, you will know that there are really three different types. There are those that model a real-world airline. There are those that try to do their own thing and do a terrible job at it. And then there are those that do their own thing and do an amazing job at it. Well, I got to tell you, we're definitely the third one there. We do something that nobody else does. You can fly any of the divisions over at Mac Air from a single profile. So that's our open division, which lets you fly what you want, when you want, where you want. Our historical division, which flies the actual real-world historical routes in historical aircraft like the old Constellation, the DC-3, and so on. We've got our cargo division, which lets you fly all the different cargo routes from FedEx to Lufthansa and everything in between. And we've got our professional division, which requires you to go through a training process for each level, for each rank within the professional division, and you actually have to take check rides. And these check rides are not something generic. You actually have a live examiner from Mac Air who sits in the aircraft with you online and takes you through a check ride. And then we've got our charter division where you can create your own flight if we don't already have it on the schedule. I mean, that's just a small sampling of what we offer over at Mac Air, and you fly all of that from a single profile. And on top of all of that, we've got an amazing staff who puts all their time and their effort into making sure that your experience is absolutely fantastic. So, for those of you who've been around a long time, if you're looking for something new and exciting that's going to bring a sense of purpose to your flight simulation, you want to check us out over at macairvirtual.com. And for those of you who are new to the flight simulation community, which Microsoft Flight Simulator has brought in a lot of new pilots, if you're looking for something where you can learn more, experience a community environment where pilots are going to share what they know and treat you like a colleague and have a good time while you're doing it, then macairvirtual.com is definitely for you. So, check us out over there. Once again, macairvirtual.com. There's my shameless plug. It's an amazing virtual airline, and all the folks over there are absolutely fantastic. With all of that said, what do you say we climb up in the office and get to work? Alright, business as usual. Let's take a look at our flight plan first. You can see KTUL to KGBD in our beautiful 737 from PMDG. Cost index is going to be 85, not a long flight, 241 nautical miles. I know this says, for whatever reason, SimBrief thinks 16,000 feet is an acceptable cruising altitude in a 737. It's not, but don't worry, we're not going to do that. We're going to go up to 30,000 feet. Estimated takeoff weight is 126,594 pounds, landing at 121,588 with a zero fuel weight of 113,789. I did throw in a couple thousand pounds of extra fuel in there because we should be fighting headwinds the whole way. We'll see how well the weather in Microsoft Flight Simulator stacks up against the weather being pulled by SimBrief. That's always a good time, right? So that put our block fuel at 13,305 pounds. That's all in there, so we're good to go on that. The routing direct to Tulsa, we're probably going to skip the Tulsa VOR. We'll see how it goes, or I may circle around to it. Victor 73 out to Frax, then direct to Haran, and then on in from there. Taking a look at our times really quick. 1500 Zulu. We should be pretty close to that, actually. I tried to set the times properly this time. We'll see how that worked out. So 1500 is our out time, off blocks at 1520, and so on and so forth. And then 129 packs on board, cargo 7,000 pounds, payload 29,700 pounds. Puts our zero fuel weight at 113,800 pounds. Fantastic. What do you say we climb up? Actually, we're in the flight deck. What do you say we go back over there and get back to work? Alright, well, the passengers are finishing getting loaded up in the back. We've already gone through our cockpit acceptance. We did not start the APU yet. We're just sitting on ground power. The overhead setup is complete, but we do need to make sure that everything is done in our FMC. So we'll jump down here. You can see I've already gone ahead and grabbed the flight plan. I did save it. It's going to be Mac Air Flight 121. I don't know what it is about this little keyboard. I struggle to find the letters, which is silly because they're in order, but I struggle with it anyway. Go over to our performance initialization page. We've already put in our zero fuel weight. I pulled it from the flight plan. Put it in there. We're good to go. 2,000 on our reserves. Cost index is going to be 85. And we are going to be, now this is recommending 2,000 or 27,200 feet. We're going to fly at flight level 300. We can get there in time. Leaves us about 65 or 70 nautical miles before we start our descent. So pretty short, but I like it that way. It works out nicely. We're going to go with a max takeoff and a max climb. That's going to make it easier to get up there quickly. Takeoff page flap's going to be 15. Put that in there. Center of gravity is probably about 26. No, I wasn't even close. It was 18.7. Not even remotely close. Let's do the departure really quick. We haven't put that in yet. And in order, I think, to appropriately do that, let's pull the ATIS.
Tulsa Airport information, Oscar 1300 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility 10. Sky condition, ceiling 14,400 feet overcast. Temperature 26. Dew point 10. Altimeter 29.99. Visual runway 8 in use. Landing and departing runway 8. DFR aircraft say direction of flight.
Okay, so there you have it. Now, something I find interesting is Tulsa just appears to be obsessed with runways 8 and 26. I have no idea why, but we're going to take the Tulsa 9. We're going to take runway 8. We'll brief all of that when the time is appropriate. So activate and execute those. Go to your legs page. 1,100 feet. That has to do with our vectors. You got to get at or above 1,100 feet. You'll see that on the departure briefing. And then we'll be on vectors. And then we'll swing it over to Tulsa. We may be able to just hit that direction and go on from there. And everything looks good other than that. There are no arrivals in Great Bend, so we're going to have to select our approach at the appropriate time. Moving back over here to our takeoff page, then we can go over here. We can put our wind in now. I happen to know, because I calculated it, that the runway slope it's actually 0.53%, but you'll see it just puts it at 0.5. And then the wind would be 0000 because it's calm. That's what you put in there. And it's dry. There's no rain right now, so everything looks good there. So go back over here, and then you can go ahead and enter your V speeds there. That takes care of setting up the FMC. Alright, the flight attendant has just finished our boarding announcement, which means we should be done boarding shortly. We have a little bit more work to do here up on the flight deck. So let's finish cleaning things up here. We need to set this to flight level 300, so we'll scroll that over. And there we go, flight level 300. Flight directors can come on left and right. And we had 126 on our V2, so we'll put this at 136. It was too high. Auto throttle can wait. LNAV and VNAV can both be armed. This can go to RTO, that's your auto brakes. What else we need to do here? Oh yeah, we need to set our altimeter, let's call it that. Yeah. What did we say? 29er. That's why you write down your ATIS, because you're going to forget it. That was too high. There we go. Let's go ahead and test the TCAS there. There you can see the TCAS test taking place. I can't even talk now. Put that on TARA. He'll tell us it's done here in a sec. Here we go. Fantastic. What else do we have here? We are just about ready to push and start. The passenger boarding is almost complete. This is our push and start checklist, just so you know. Doors will be closed once they're all on board. We have our clearance for push. Throttles are at idle. If we jump up top here, let's go ahead and just fire up the APU right now. This is going to save us a little time because they are definitely going to be done boarding soon. So down twice on that. And then as we start preparing to start the aircraft, we can go ahead and bring the fuel pumps on. Both of these guys are going to come on here. The packs will go off I'll just do it right now. Might make the passengers a little miserable, but it's not going to be for long, I promise. Probe heat stays off. We're going to use the right ignition today. And all we're doing now is waiting for the APU, which will take just a minute here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish that up because we don't have anything else to do. And then I'm going to come back on here and we will push and start. Alright, they're going to be done with the boarding here any minute now. We need to take a look at our taxi and our departure briefing using Sim Toolkit Pro and our Navigraph charts linked together. It's a pretty fantastic combo. So, taking a look at our ground chart here for Tulsa really quick. Zoom that in just a skosh. We're going to push back with our nose to the right and our tail to the left. This represents our little airplane here. We're going to be taking runway 8. So, we're going to taxi on over here to Charlie Taxiway and take that all the way down to whatever this is. It's probably Charlie 1 since that's Charlie 2. Nope, this is Charlie 1 here, so that's going to be Lima actually. We're going to hold short at Lima is what it looks like. So there you go. Either way, the departure is going to be the Tulsa 9 departure. It's the only departure they have out of here. This is the takeoff obstacle notes, which I'm going to show you here in just a minute. But you can see all of these are vectors heading out. So same thing for us right here, taking runway 8. It's vectors heading 086 degrees until we're at or above 1100 feet and then on course from there. That's what that 1100 was in the FMC. Departures on 124.0, transition altitude 18,000 feet. We're all very familiar with that. I do want to show you, this isn't something we usually look at on here, but I'm going to show it to you real quick. Takeoff obstacles. Now these are typically not going to be applicable for an aircraft that has the performance of a 737, but it's still something you want to become familiar with. So runway 8, there are several obstacles on takeoff. You have a sign 131 feet from the departure end of the runway. It's 466 feet right of center line, and it's 8 feet above the ground, or 637 feet MSL. I mean, let's be honest, if we hit that with a 737, we have other problems. You have a tree 825 feet from the departure end of the runway, 713 feet left of center line, 660 feet MSL. Buildings, a building and a pole beginning 1,030 feet, and so on. I'm not going to finish reading. Pause and read the rest of them if you want to, but just something to become familiar with. Occasionally you will see that you've got these takeoff obstacles you need to concern yourself with. Make sure you're paying attention to those, especially if you're in an aircraft that doesn't have a really high performance rating and is really heavy. It could become an issue. So just want to show that to you real quick. Okay, they're done boarding, so we're going to hop back in the flight deck here and then we're going to push and start.
Please release parking brake.
So you see I'm clicking on it right now. It won't do anything. You have to press the brakes. That's how you release it, which is more realistic. Now I don't know how it is in the 737. I've only flown Cessna 172s, but in a Cessna 172, that's how you set the parking brakes, believe it or not. So anyway, let's go back over to our FMC on here. We're ready to start engines. You guys have seen this process before. We'll get started on the first one. Packs are off. That's you got to make sure the packs are off. If packs aren't off, it ain't gonna work right. We need to put that on auto. And then we're on the ignition. We're going to start with engine number 2. Just roll it over to ground. We'll roll this guy over to engines. Usually you should do that before you start the process. Once we hit 25 on the N2, we'll go ahead and introduce the fuel, and that is going to fire up the engine for us. We'll go through the first one here, and then we'll break away and come back when we're ready to start taxiing. So just counting up to 25 there. There's 24 and 25. Introduce the fuel. You'll see that the N1 starts to increase, the exhaust gas temperature starts to increase, and the engine will start. She's going to finish her safety brief back there. I'm going to finish the pushback and the engine start, and I'll see you back here momentarily. Alrighty, engine 1 is just finished stabilizing there. Let's take a look at our after start checklist. The engine generators need to come on up top here. Remember, this is a flow first, then a checklist, so both of these guys will come on. That puts us on the bus. We can turn the APU off at this point to make sure the packs come on. If you don't do that, you're going to have a problem with your cabin altitude. Go ahead and get the probe heat on up here, and the wing lights on down here. Everything else is looks good to go up here. Taxi lights will come on. It's part of our taxi checklist, but we can turn them on right now. That's fine. You can also turn on runway turn-off lights if it's dark out and you need to be able to see. What else we got here? Okay, so probe heat is on. Anti-ice is as required. Engine bleeds are on. Packs are on auto. Isolation valve is on auto. APU bleed is off. We actually didn't turn the bleed off, did we? We turned the APU off, not the bleed. So turn that guy off there. APU switch is off, external lights as required, master caution light is off, and then click on that recall button right there. That's this guy. Make sure nothing stays lit up and you're good to go. Let's get to the proper view here. And track IR coming on. It'll probably have to get centered up. It's always all over the place. Close. There we go. Center. Let's go ahead and set the flaps. I did already set the trim. There's flaps 2. There's 5, 10, and 15. Do our flight controls check really quick. Full left, full right, and neutral all the way up, all the way down, and neutral, and then full left and full right on the rudder, which always bounces around on me, and then neutral. That completes our flight controls check. Put this back on the engines page for now. If I can actually click on the button there. And we've got our taxi clearance. Sorry for all the bouncing around with the track IR there. Taxi clearance is good. Ground crew is clear. Taxi speed will take care of that. Flaps are set. We are ready to rock and roll. Let's go ahead and take those brakes off. So you just press the brakes now, and we'll start taxiing away. Ooh, that sucker got rolling quick, didn't it? Passengers in the back are like, whoa, is this a race car or what? I'll tell you what, the 737, it's a little mover, that's for sure. Alrighty, folks, you know the drill. I'm going to go ahead and taxi out here. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. When we get close to holding short of the runway, we'll take care of our before takeoff checklist items, and then away we go. Alrighty, folks, we're almost to the hold short point of the runway here. Let's take a look at our before takeoff checklist down to the line. The master caution light is off. The recall has been checked yet again. What else we got here? Flight controls have been checked. Flaps are set to 15. Trim is set to 5.71. I believe it's in that vicinity. 5.7 something. Flight directors are on. Takeoff briefing is complete. Let's go ahead and arm the auto throttles here. And there is no traffic inbound to our runway as far as I can tell. So we're going to be able to roll right onto the runway. So as we start this turn here, let's go ahead and get taxi or the landing lights on. Runway turn off lights on. Taxi lights off. Let's move our strobe up to, there we go, the rest of our lights are good. Let's go ahead and finish that turn there. It's kind of hard to see in two places at once. Your peripheral vision doesn't work very good in here. So that brings us to our before takeoff checklist below the line. Takeoff clearance is obtained, strobe lights are on, wing lights are on, landing lights are on, runway turn off lights are on, engine start switches need to go to continuous. That's 1 over for each of these. And swing her around here, we can put this back to both. And just bring her to a nice easy stop here. Folks are ready to go in the back, I do believe. Flight attendants have told me that we're ready to go. And nice and gentle on the stop here so that we don't freak anybody out back there. And auto throttles are armed, transponder is set to TARA. We are ready to go. So let's go ahead and get about 60% N1 on our thrust there. Hold those brakes, just let it stabilize a little, release the brakes, and toga. And away we go. Let's fly. Check. Ooh, a little squirrely there. Alright, let's get her up in the air quick.
Positive rate of climb.
Gear coming up. And we're just following that flight director. You can see the Tulsa VOR is dead ahead of us there. We don't want to climb quite too fast there. Everything's looking good so far. So remember, ooh, look at that wind. We just hit a 30 knot crosswind on takeoff. How crazy was that? That was pretty good there, actually. I really enjoyed that. There's our thrust reduction. We can go to flaps 5 now. Let that nose come down just a little bit. Boy, that wind, look, it's up to 32 knots now. That was some crazy wind right there. It is all over the place. Go up to flaps 1. And you can see we're almost to the Tulsa VOR already. Let's go ahead and go to our legs page real fast, and we'll replace vectors with the Tulsa VOR. Execute that. Let me go ahead and turn the autopilot on now. I do like flying the aircraft. I'd like to keep flying it, but I just want to go ahead and let it make that turn as we finish bringing up our flaps. Let's get the auto brakes off at this point. Let's Get the track IR off as well. Flaps can come all the way up. Track IR is off. Get to a view that's a little more usable for us. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to start the clock. I always forget to start the clock. I think it's, which one do you press to start on this one? That one there? There we go. Okay, so we'll be a couple minutes behind, but that's alright. Let's take a look at our after takeoff checklist here then. Flaps are up. Gears up. Landing lights are still on and will be for a little while. We're not at transition altitude, so we're not going to do anything with our altimeters yet. We'll go ahead and turn this bad boy off. Auto brakes are off. There are no auto spoilers for takeoff in this aircraft anymore, and that means that takes care of our after takeoff checklist, and that means, yeah, I said that twice, that's right. It is time, once again, ladies and gentlemen, for some of that obligatory elevator music. Alrighty folks, as you can see, we're just about at our top of climb here. Our top of descent is going to come shortly after that. So I want to take a look at our approach briefing, at least for the moment, and then we'll come back over here and we should be just about ready to get the aircraft configured for descent. So bringing Sim Toolkit Pro back over here. Right now, we're expecting the wind to be calm at Great Bend Airport, so if the wind remains calm and unless the AWOS tells us otherwise, which it usually doesn't tell you which runways they're using, if I recall correctly, we're going to be using their RNAV for runway 17, and there's a couple things I want to mention about this as we go through. So let's zoom in here a little bit and take a look. First of all, we don't have an ATIS, we have an AWOS, which is Automated Weather Observation System. That's where we're going to get our weather report from. Kansas City Center is on 18.8, Wichita Radio on 22.5, and the Gila Bend Unicom is on 122.8. There is no tower at this airport. WAS, we're going to talk about that in a moment, but it has to do with a specific aspect of this approach that you can use. But I'm going to need some info from some of you out there because I've done a lot of research on it and I still can't figure it out. I'll tell you about that here in just a second. Final approach course is 172 degrees. It's not a glide slope, but our descent point is at 3,600 feet at Conpy. And then decision altitude, if you use an LPV, which is going to relate back to this WAS, is 200 feet. Again, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Airport elevation is 1,887 feet. Touchdown zone elevation 1,884 feet. Minimum safe altitude for the entire area is 4,000 feet. For a missed approach, you're going to climb to 3,600 feet direct to HESMA and hold. Transition altitude 18,000 feet. We're familiar with that. So for us, we're actually coming in from over here. So we're going to transition onto this approach at discs. So we're going to fly to discs, and then you're going to take a right-hand turn when you're 11 from FEVD to 355 degrees, and we're going to go out here and we're going to enter this hold. Now, for your guys' sake, I'll probably come back on here as we're about to exit the hold, so you don't have to sit there and fly in circles with me. But you do want to note that the hold is 172 degrees inbound to FEVD, which is the initial approach fix, and it's right-hand turns. And I'll show you how to make sure that's set up properly in your FMC. So that's at 4,000 feet from FEVD. We can drop down to 3,600 feet, and then intercept that descent point at Compi. PAPI lights on the left hand side. There are some runway lights. I forget what REIL stands for. I did all of that in a video. It's hard to remember. It's a lot of information. It's some bright lights telling us which way to go. Okay, looking at our minimums here, which shouldn't be an issue today, but nonetheless something we need to consider. If we're flying just LNAV, then it's 396 feet AGL. If we're using LNAV and VNAV, it's 398 feet AGL. And if we do an LPV approach, we can actually go all the way down to 200 feet and 3/4 of a mile of visibility. I can't get my brain to function properly. So the LPV approach, I've looked it up. LPV, sometimes it's called APV. It's essentially a, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it a semi-precision approach. You fly it similar to an ILS, but using the GPS and this WAS frequency here, HF frequency. Now, here's the issue. Some folks say that this is just to give it a designator. You don't actually use it. Others say there's supposed to be a way to tune it in, but why would you tune it in? Because you fly it on the GPS. So basically, it's flown using LNAV and VNAV, but also in combination with this, which gives you lower minimums. I haven't been able to figure out how that works yet, so if somebody knows, please let me know down in the comments. This is a relatively new thing that they've started doing, actually. So yeah, LPV approach allows you to fly. I thought you'd just fly it with the LNAV and the VNAV and you'd be good to go. Well, apparently not. So let's jump back over here. We are 32 nautical miles from top of descent, so we're going to take this down to 4,000 feet. There we go, we're set to 4,000 feet there. And then we need to take a look at our FMC and make sure everything is set up the way we want it in there, which I've already gone ahead and done that. So you see from Haran to disks, that's our transition point. And if we change this view here over to we'll go to the plan mode, and then we can step through here. So you can see there's disks right there, and then from there you make that turn out to FEVD, and then we're going to hold at FEVD. Now, it doesn't look like our hold is set up properly on here, but it actually is. If you click on your hold page here, you can see there's FEVD for our hold, inbound at 172 degrees with right-hand turns. It does say 4,000 at or above. I'm just going to enter the hold and stay there until I hit 4,000 feet, which I'm sure won't be an issue. And then when you exit the hold, that 172 degrees is your inbound course for the approach. So once you've made sure you got all that set up, you should be good to go. Now again, not sure what to do about the LPV approach, because there's not a way for me to tune in that WAS channel as far as I can tell. So that's what I'm hoping maybe somebody out there knows. I've looked up a lot of information on forums from pilots and so on, and nobody explains that. I've found some great explanations about what an LPV approach is, but no explanation on how you're actually supposed to fly it. So not really sure what to do there, except to say that we're going to fly it as if we're flying an LNAV VNAV approach, which is going to put our minimums at 398 feet. So if I jump up here and I go to my minimums, we're going to put this at 398. Now that's baro. I want to be on the radio. So click that back there. That puts you on radio. And then you see we can scroll that up, and that's going to take a minute. And there we go. Now we've got our minimum set to 398 feet. Now the reason that I'm doing this is twofold. Number one, the weather should be good enough that it's not too big of a deal. And number two, I'm not sure that we're actually flying the LPV approach, because we're using LNAV and VNAV, but that's different. Now, last thing I want to show you here real quick, we'll jump back down here. You remember from the approach that it said 2620 at EJAFA, and I think that's part of setting up an LPV approach, is you need that to be 2620, but not at or above. Now here's the thing, if I go /2620, it's going to round that down probably to 2600. No, it let me put it directly, so that's good. So I think maybe that sets us up for an LPV approach, making sure that these altitudes are spot on so that our VNAV can fly it, but I'm not 100% positive. We've talked about that long enough. You guys get the point. You know what an LPV approach is, at least generally now. How to fly it, I'm not 100% certain. So if you do know, let me know down in the comments. I know we've got a couple of real-world pilots out there, so it'd be great to get some feedback. But other than that, I will see you guys when we're getting ready to exit the hold at FEVD. Alrighty folks, we've had to change up our approach. The weather is 336 at 5, altimeter 3000. I need to change this real quick as well. There we go. So we've changed it up. We're going to fly the ILS runway 35 approach. I'm just on heading hold mode right now, bringing it around to a back course. I'll show you why here. Let's bring the Sim Toolkit Pro over here in our Navigraph charts. Take a look at the approach itself. So first things first, we've already pulled the AWOS on 119.275. All of the frequencies remain the same. Our localizer frequency is 111.9. We've got that programmed into both of the nav radios. Final approach course is 352 degrees. Glide slope intercept at BABZ at 3,572 feet. ILS decision altitude is 200 feet. We need to change that. Airport elevation and touchdown zone elevation remain pretty much the same. Our minimum safe altitudes changed just a little bit. And then for our missed approaches, climb to 2300, then a climbing left turn to 3600, direct to BABC, LOM, and hold. BABC is this guy right here. So transition altitude remains the same. What I'm doing right now is setting up a back course so that we can come in here to BABC, which is our initial approach fix, and set up this procedure turn without trying to come in from over here. I'm not really sure why it's set up that way, but we are going to do the procedure turn. So we'll come in over here at BABZ. It doesn't actually give us an altitude, but 3,600 feet as we go through the procedure turn. I'll show you what that looks like on the plan in the FMC. And then glide slope intercept here at 3,572 feet. We'll show you the FMC automatically programs in some additional waypoints for that. It's VASI lights for this one on the left hand side, and some different runway approach lights as well. Minimums at 200 feet. Okay, so that's the approach briefing. That's what we're going to be flying now. We do have that set in. This thing's bouncing all over the place because it doesn't know what we're doing. But you can see right now we're supposed to go to HUT, which is way out over here. I don't want to do that. Instead, I am flying on heading mode here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start bringing this around and set it up so that I can get a gentler angle coming into GB. Now I can't say that that's the right way to do it, but there's no air traffic control in the area, and there aren't any other aircraft in the area right now. As you can see, there are a bunch of different waypoints in here. These are all for that procedure turn. The aircraft is the FMC is automatically programmed those in there, and then that brings us all the way around and then back to BABC again at 3,572 feet, which is, you guessed it, that is our glide slope intercept. We should be good to go from there. So we'll put this back one page here. And what I'm going to do then is I need to take HUT and I need to replace it with GB, but I don't want to do that quite yet because if I do, it's going to be a really sharp turn. So I'm going to cut this across at about 90 degrees, and we're pretty far out here now, so this should make it a little gentler. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to break away, or I'm going to fast forward. I'll probably just fast forward it, but I'm going to fly up here a little bit, and then we'll replace those. And then when we're about to cross GB, I'll come back on here so that you guys can be with me for the procedure turn. Alright folks, as you can see, just a couple nautical miles from GB at this point. We've gone ahead and started configuring the aircraft. We're going to continue to get it configured because I don't want to be going too fast as we make that procedure turn, but I don't want to be fully configured until we get all the way around either, because we still got a little ways to go. So just bringing in a little bit of flaps to help slow the aircraft and maintain some control here. Might take control of the speed when I go to the next setting of flaps here, just because I don't want the aircraft flying too terribly slow. It does like to fly at the, see, like it just dropped a 159 there. Yeah, I don't want to go 159. I want to be flying a wee bit faster than that, so we're going to keep it at 175 for now. That's a safe speed for flaps 5. And you can see now we've crossed over GB and we're starting that back course now. We're still below where we need to be. That's alright though. Again, we're trying to get down to 3,600 feet. So we're just going to fly back a little bit here until we hit this waypoint here. So this is a set distance typically, right? Our FMC has been kind enough to set it in there for us, so easy enough. We've all flown an ILS approach before. You guys know how this works. We don't usually do procedure turns, but here we have a procedure turn. So once we come around on the turn here, right in this area here, so this should be our localizer, I believe. unless for some reason we've got terrain that I'm unaware of around here. We'll just hit the terrain mode for a minute and take a look. It doesn't really show a lot of terrain in the area, but you can see there are some slightly higher terrain over here. It's not even mountains, so this is Kansas after all, right? Good times. Let's turn terrain mode back off. It's just a bit of an eyesore. Let's go ahead and bring in the next setting of flaps. It's going to put us at flaps 10. That's the last setting we can go to before we have to drop the landing gear. So either way, my point is that this is the center line of the runway, which should also be where we fly on the localizer. So as we're getting close on this turn here, I'm going to go ahead and arm the localizer so that we fly the localizer. I don't want to fly way out here and then have to cut back over to line up with the localizer. As you can see also here, I'll zoom it in a little bit for you. You can see that we are quickly getting to the point where to the altitude we need to be at. So this is our vertical performance, right? This is required navigation performance. This is actual navigation performance. And so when this gets to the center here, we should switch, well, it's already on VNAV path, but it should actually start to descend again. Right now it's just maintaining altitude until it gets back on the right track there. That's all that's going on there. Now I'm going to probably just fast forward a little bit until we're about to intercept that localizer. Alright, there's our localizer capture right there. You can see it actually looks like the localizer is going to be a little left of this center line of the runway, which is interesting. But it has captured it, we can see, because it's in green here. So we'll go ahead and arm the approach now. You'll see GS or glide slope in white. So let's go ahead and get back to a proper view here. Let's get the track IR coming on. I may have to center it up again. There we go. A couple things we need to do here. Landing lights are already on. Runway turnoff lights are fine where they're at. We need to put these to continuous here. APU can stay off for the moment. Let's take a look at our landing checklist, or our approach checklist. The approach is selected in brief. The nav radios are set for the approach. The approach intercept should be about 180 knots. We're looking good on that. You can see the little white diamond up here because it hasn't captured that yet, but we should be good to go here shortly. Everything else, what else we got? Auto brake needs to be set. We don't have that set yet, so let me just make sure that's ready to go there. There we go. That wasn't auto brake, so that's auto spoilers. This is auto brakes. We're going to put auto brakes 3. It is a pretty short runway, just a little over, I think it's 7,800 feet. Auto spoilers are armed. Engine start switches are on continuous, and then at our final approach fix, we'll go gear down and finish configuring the aircraft, so which should be here relatively soon. So again, it's flying on the localizer right now. So remember, glide slope intercept should be right here at Gabsy. Is that how you said it? No, Babsy. GB Babsy. I don't know why is it GB, but it's pronounced Babsy. That's kind of interesting. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the speed intervention here. Let the FMC take control of the speed again. You can see it's going to slow us down a little bit, and it still hasn't recognized the glide slope. You notice that? So we're coming up on Babsy. We got 3 nautical miles. This should turn magenta pretty soon and start descending as we approach that glide slope. We'll see how that works out. Okay, just 1.5 miles now. I stand corrected because it hasn't actually captured the glide slope. It's going to stay white, but it should capture right at our capture point. So that should work out nicely. Let's go ahead and drop that landing gear now and bring in that next setting of flaps. It's only 5 miles from the glide slope intercept point. There it is, captured immediately. Let's just see. It should not have an auto land feature on this one, but I did tune both radios so we can run both autopilots there. Next setting of flaps coming in, and we are doing, I don't think I told you guys this, we're going to do a flaps 30 130 knots, so we can actually change that. I did it a little earlier, but we burned a little fuel because we changed our approach. So 130 knots, and you can see it's given control of the speed back over to us. It did that automatically. That's fine. You can see that flare is armed now. That's what the white flare means. That means it will auto land on this runway. We're not going to auto land. We should be just fine to fly it ourselves. So there's flaps 30. Let's get this down to 135. There we go. That's right where we want to be. And let me just take control of the throttles here. We need to slow down, not speed up. It's definitely hazy out. I can just make out the runway. I don't know if you guys can see the runway lights right there. It's hazy and it's a little bumpy, and we don't have any real wind indication yet. But I don't have a good clear view of the runway actually. So let me just recenter this view because it just feels wrong. As our speed's slowing down here a little bit, let's go. Okay, I got the runway nice and clear now. My aircraft. And we're looking good there. Looks like we're just a hair right of center line. Oh, and the minimums. I never changed the minimums back. My bad. Ooh-wee, she just took a little nosedive on us there. There's our VASI lights on the left-hand side. This is a short runway, so looking good on our speed there. Whoa, why is it nosediving on me? Look at that. Okay, let's listen to call-outs.
100. 50. 30. 10.
Nice. That was butter, folks. Auto brakes are doing their job. Just try to keep her in the center of the runway there. And let's switch to manual braking. Just let her roll out a little bit here. Boy, she got really squirrely on that runway, didn't she? There's 60 knots. We can go ahead and reduce the thrust. And we're going to take this exit right here. Woo-wee. That was,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kansas. The local time is
I'm
10
proud of that
a.m.
landing. That one was pretty
Currently
solid.
about
Okay, there we go.
66
Nice and
degrees
slow.
Fahrenheit. You can now
And we'll take her off right over here.
until the aircraft has come to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign is turned off. Remember to use caution when
I do enjoy the announcements from PACX. You can do a custom, you can do custom announcements, so maybe something I have to look into here in the not too distant future. Okay, let's get those landing lights off. Let's see if I can find that tiny little quick spot there. Taxi lights on. We don't need runway turn-off lights. I don't know why I'm going up there. I want the APU. Turn that bad boy on. These can go off continuous. We can start getting the flaps back up, and auto brakes can go off. And that should be my flaps all the way up there. I'm going to go ahead and taxi in. It's a short taxi, and then I'll see you guys back on here when we're ready to shut her down. Alright, we got us a parking space here real quick before I shut the engines off. I just want to go ahead and get the stairs out because they are going to start offloading no matter what. And so if I don't have stairs out there, then it's not going to work out very well. They're going to be falling off the airplane. So let's request ground power, and then let's go over here. There's stairs, so it's just saying that the engines inhibit. So we'll go ahead and shut those off real quick. Let's go on the APU bus here. There we go. On the APU bus. Now we can go ahead and turn the engines off. Ah. You just can't get the right view for nothing. There we go. Engines off. There we go. Now we can request the stairs. Bring those over here. Go back here. Go to doors. Open door left. And there we go. The boarding, or the deboarding has begun. We'll put this back over the FMC just because that'll drive me nuts here. Okay, so I always forget to talk through, or I did the flows for my after landing checklist, but we didn't do the quote-unquote checklist itself. But let's take a look at our shutdown and secure checklist. The brakes are on, the start levers are cut off. Ground power, we haven't actually gone to that yet, but I did request it as you saw. So we'll go on to ground power, and that means that we can come off of the bus. So off. And it just automatically did it, didn't it? We can turn the APU off at this point. Usually I just leave it running, but it's fine. So let's just go up here. There's a couple things we got to do. Okay, so probe heat's got to go off. Window heat's got to go off. There we go. These guys got to come off. All of those can stay on the, we're not on the APU anymore, so we don't need to worry about that. And the signs can, that's what I forgot. Didn't turn the signs off. You got to turn the signs off, and that gets them deboarding or whatever. So we can turn the fuel pumps off as well. I always forget like 10 different things, kind of silly. But anyway, that takes care of our shutdown and secure checklist, and that means that's going to wrap it up for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Now, literally between the time I said that means and that's going to wrap it up, there's like a 4.5 minute gap. And the reason is I wanted the carts, the baggage carts and stuff to get here. I wanted to see if it actually unloaded baggage because I never paid attention. PMDG. I'm sure you don't watch my videos, but somebody maybe who knows somebody at PMDG who does watch my videos, please, I'm begging you, speed up those carts. That is just ridiculously long to sit there and wait for those to show up. Like, it's just crazy. So they drive around like maniacs on the airfield. I'm begging you, please, please, please speed up those carts. That is way too long to wait for those carts to show up to start unloading stuff. In reality, they're sitting right near there anyway. That's just crazy to me. But anyway, enough of my complaint there. This was a good little flight. I really liked flying into this little airfield. I have never been here before. It was a pretty tight little approach there. I have no idea why the aircraft decided to try and do that nosedive on short final. Like, that was just... everything was looking pretty, and then it was like, yeah, let's just dive in right now. So you definitely got to be on your toes sometimes. And the wind, even though it didn't show any wind on the PFD or the nav display, it was kind of squirrely. Like, it was a little all over the place. Nonetheless, we greased it in there, and it was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the next flight. I hope that you guys enjoyed it as well. If you're liking the channel and you think that I've earned it, please do go ahead and click on that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. The thumbs up help with the algorithm, and you know, it'd just be a huge help for me, and I'd really appreciate it. So with all of that said, once again, if you're looking for a great experience, something that's going to bring your flight simulation to a different level and give you sort of a sense of purpose, if you will, and just a lot of fun with a great group of folks, take a look at macairvirtual.com. I promise you won't be disappointed. That's it. That's all, and no more, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, as always, keep the blue side up, unless otherwise instructed by ATC. God bless you all, and have an absolutely wonderful day.